I heard on the radio the placebo effect. I think that's the right word. And what they did was they told someone they were giving them a certain drug, but yet it wasn't the drug. And the belief that they were getting the drug made it so that their own mind and their own chemistry produced the drug. The conclusion was that the mind has its own laboratory. This mirrors the conclusion of the philosophical traditions, for instance, Kashmir Shaivism, that talks about how you become what you identify with. Really, the whole tantric philosophy is based on giving you things, symbolisms to identify with, to call forth the higher aspects within yourself. It's really the entire process is identification with these expanded symbolisms that represent the higher aspects of your own self in order to bring forth those aspects. In the same way that the body has its own chemistry it can produce, the mind can also produce states of illumination or allow states of illumination to come forth. The thing is that we convince ourselves we're not saints. We convince ourselves that we have problems. We convince ourselves that we're victims of circumstance, that we're suffering because our relationship didn't work out. We're suffering because we were looking good at the ashram, now all of a sudden we're not looking so good anymore, so we can't handle not looking so good anymore. We live in the reality that we've created, and we even create the reality that we're not good enough. We create the reality that we can't do it. We create the reality that we're not holy enough, that we can't live a pure lifestyle, that we can't be a master of circumstance. We're doing what we can, but we just can't quite do it. And we buy into all these attitudes. Instead of assuming the disposition of a master, even though we're not a master, we live as though we're not a master, and we aren't a master either. If we assume the disposition of a master, then we look at the things going on from the perspective of self-mastery. You take the disposition of self-mastery, even though you're in pain. You don't buy into the disposition of a victim. You don't buy into the disposition, well, it's nice these guys could do it. It's nice Ramakrishna did this. It's nice these other people do it. I think I'll read about it, but it's not relevant to me. That's them. They could do it. They're not me. But the problem is, the self that was in them is in you. And the only difference is, you convince yourself what you can do and what you can't do. You've taken on the disposition of a bound soul. Everyone's capable of it. The disposition is they bought into the framework they're not capable of it. They believe they're not capable of it. They've convinced themselves that they're not capable of it. If you don't develop self-mastery now, then where are you going to be then? It has to be developed now so that no matter what situation life puts in front of you, you have your spiritual foundation. And that is your self-mastery. Your self-mastery is not dependent on your finances, your relationships, your health, or anything else. It's not dependent on anything outside. It's a state. And it's dependent on you. It's not dependent on things. You can't escape through things. You can't escape through the world. You can't escape through relationships. You can't escape through anything other than developing this disposition and experiencing deeper aspects of that state. One cannot be entrapped by circumstance, no matter what the circumstance is. We're supposed to reinforce the master. We're supposed to reinforce the self. We're supposed to reinforce the supermind, the ultimate potentialities that exist inside. Are you going to be a baby and go out somewhere and hide from life? You have to develop the spiritual grit. You have to develop the solidity within yourself that isn't victimized perpetually by the nature of what presents itself. The place exists in you. It's not conditional. It's not outside. It's just a matter of recognition. It's a matter of yourself creating that chemistry, like we talked about the pharmaceutical aspect of what you believe. You actually don't believe yourself to be capable. You don't believe yourself to be an advanced yogi because you see yourself being conditioned by circumstance. You see yourself going through things and you think advanced yogis don't, so all of a sudden you must not be an advanced yogi. The problem is, that is the problem. The problem is you're looking at it the wrong way. The self in you is no different than the self in any of these saints. It's really sad to see people suffer. It's sad to see people be so victimized by situations. The world as you see it makes it so that you become a victim of the world. You're a victim of your job, you're a victim of everything. You're a victim of everything. A victim of sex, a victim of desire, or a victim of dissatisfaction, a victim of emotions. You can be a master with a diseased body. You can be a master with emotions that come up. Or you can be a victim with emotions that come up. Otherwise, you're going to be ground up. Life is going to grind you up. You're going to get old, you're going to get sick, and you're going to die. Period. You can get it together now, or not get it together. Get old, get sick, and die. And come back and try it again. If you take the disposition, and you do the sadhana, and you have the focus, and you do selfless activities, and give something of yourself, there's no horizon that can't be crossed. It's in one's own mind. They can create their circumstance. And the world hasn't come into the disposition of self-mastery. But we can't say that what's happening in the world is good or bad. It's what's happening, but what else would be happening? It's also part of an evolution. It's part of an evolution of understanding. It's an evolution that takes time, and it takes suffering, and it takes destruction, which is all part of that course of evolution, human evolution. The whole planet, the whole race is evolved or moved into that divine disposition. And we're only in this reality for a short period of time. This is the field that we have to operate in. We can't change the world, but we can change ourselves.